Did you know that there are 2 sites in the U.S. that have these directed energy weapons? One is Nevada and the other is Maui. Let's start with this directed energy Air Force Maui optical and supercomputing AMOS site located on the island of Maui. May I quote from the website? Listen to this. Directed energy harnesses the power of the electromagnetic spectrum to enable airmen to effectively and affordably strike critical targets at the speed of light. Question, why Maui? Answer, it's a new smart grid in Hawaii dubbed the, quote, Jump Smart Maui Project.
We busted our ass, and this is what we get? Nobody called us. Our phones didn't work from 5 in the morning. The fire was not 10 o'clock when I went to work. The fire was still there. There was no water. Tell me if that's coincidence. No water, no warning. And everybody talking about the satellite city before the fire. Lahaina going to be the first satellite city. Well, hey, Jeff Bezos, you got what you wanted. Oprah, you got what you wanted. And the guy who owns the nut, you got what you wanted. Us all over. That's what happened. Okay. We need help in Lahaina. Who's going to come now and ask us, can I pray for you, Auntie?
Thank you.
Can I help you with your paperwork? Because all we got so far was $700, and we don't know who to call or anything. It's culturally insensitive in that zone.
Today, we're talking about the call from Congress to investigate President Biden and the government due to their poor response to the devastation in Maui. We'll also discuss the mysteries surrounding the Maui Lahaina fire. We won't call these theories. Instead, we're going to call them mysteries or unanswered questions, since CNN certainly is not happy seeing good people trying to uncover the truth. One coincidence is that this is perhaps the largest land grab in U.S. history.
2 years ago, the average price of an American home was $215,000. Today, 2 years later, it's $400,000. The interest rates during that same period have gone from 1% to 7%. So that home is going to cost him 10 times what would have cost somebody 2 years ago. Most of us know people who were about to buy a home. They were ready to do it, and at the last moment, somebody comes in with a cash offer and scoops it out from under them. We've all heard those stories. Why is that happening? BlackRock. There's 3 companies, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And those 3 companies, which all own each other. So it's really one huge behemoth. Also own 88% of the S&P 500. And now they have a new target, which is to gain ownership of all the single-family residences in this country. And they are on a trajectory to do that.
Is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. onto something here? Let's look. Who owns Maui? After the state of Hawaii, who owns 154,000 acres on Maui, Alexander and Baldwin is the 2nd largest landowner at over 65,000 acres, and the U.S. government, they're the 3rd largest landowner at over 33,000. Okay, so let's take a look at the investors who are behind Alexander and Baldwin. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. Interesting. Those are the exact same 3 he just named.
I wanted to say that I was deeply moved by the president as he shared with us by phone about his experiences of loss. The president, within 6 hours, met our needs with the federal movement. 6 hours. I don't think that's ever happened before. So it's our deepest appreciation to you and Dr. Biden.
Governor Josh Green just said the president met his needs. Because what we've been seeing reported from the locals in Hawaii is that their needs certainly were never met. Now survivors in Maui have this to deal with.
We're experiencing now an issue with the water supply. We're being told that the water is not safe to drink. It's also not safe after boiling, which is quite frightening. And we don't know how long that these restrictions are going to be lasting on the public. We're also hearing that the potable water being brought in by government officials is making people ill for whatever reason. They're experiencing fevers, chills, and other ailments from drinking this potable water that's been left. So I really urge you guys to please be careful on ingesting this water and where you're getting it from.
Apparently over 1,000 body bags in Matson containers and refrigerated trucks on the other side of the island right now. The government's trying to blame them. They didn't sound a siren. There was no helicopters that came. People had gone and picked their kids up from school and brought them home and left them home. No warning. No military came. The whole community is mourning the deaths of over 1,500 people. They killed innocent men, women, and children by not helping, by not sounding alarms. People were asleep in their homes with their babies and their children.
Sadly, it's also been reported that as Maui burned, Hawaii's top emergency management officials were at a Waikiki conference. Wow, what are the odds? And guess who was attending this conference? That's right, FEMA's top officials.
Those in attendance were quite literally the who's who of disaster response, both locally and from across the Pacific region. They were gathered in Waikiki for an annual FEMA disaster meeting, a half-hour plane ride away from a wildfire that would become the deadliest in the United States in more than a century.
Thousands were unaware they were in the crosshairs of a deadly inferno. That evening, Lahaina town was leveled.
So many people that I know said we never knew anything about the fire.
That same day, several of the country's top emergency management officials were in Hawaii hosting an annual conference. The agenda listed 74 attendees at this year's Pacific Partnership meeting, including FEMA leadership and several members of the Center for Homeland Defense and Security. H&N Investigates confirmed the head of Maui County's Emergency Management Agency, Herman Andaya, was also on hand, along with as many as 6 leaders from the state's Emergency Management Office.
There were consultations about the fires among local, state, and FEMA participants.
We asked both Maui County and the state who was left in charge while those local emergency officials attended the meeting, and at what time they were made aware of the catastrophe unfolding in Lahaina. Despite multiple requests, those questions remain unanswered. Meanwhile, many who experienced the horror of that day firsthand say government failed them by not sounding the emergency sirens.
It's inexcusable, really. It's inexcusable. A lot of people probably could have gotten out.
An opportunity to manage and prevent a real emergency was wasted by a conference jam-packed with people paid and responsible for managing emergencies. Now let's catch this again. We asked both Maui County and the state who was left in charge while local emergency officials attended the meeting, and what time they were made aware of the catastrophe unfolding in Lahaina. Despite multiple requests, those questions remain unanswered. The list of questions that remain unanswered seems to be growing exponentially by the day. There are just way too many things that happened beyond being coincidental or a conspiracy theory. Let's recap. Every emergency official was busy inside of a conference while a real emergency was taking place. 700 gallons of fuel was spilled by the government on Haleakala. Wind speeds being falsely reported. The guy in charge of sounding the warning sirens fails to do so. Literally surrounded by water, we heard the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, say they didn't have enough water to put out the blaze. The guy in charge of the water, he shut it off, so firefighters were left with nothing. The police barricaded exit points and blocked off the roads. Metal magically liquefied.
Like when you see this, you're just going to be like, it's going to break science. If you're a scientist and you understand anything about temperatures and melting points, what we're about to show you is going to change, in my opinion, the whole direction of this entire investigation from what I'm being led to believe, and it just makes logical sense, right?
Yeah, it's almost like there's an incinerator nearby and they just dropped the car off.
Right, so I'm going to turn the camera on what we're walking up on right now. I want you to notice there's a vehicle that's been here since the beginning. It wasn't dropped off here, obviously.
Look at the chair's not melted.
You can see here there's
sitting in the middle.
This is the highest the burn got. This car is basically completely surrounded by gravel. Look at this particular rim. Is it safe to say these are aluminum?
Look at the windshield. What's that?
Are these aluminum?
Yeah, that's cast aluminum wheels.
Cast aluminum wheel, you can see it melted.
And the windshield on the inside?
Look at the windshield. That is a windshield right there that is completely melted. We have some jumper cables in the back of the vehicle, or we have some cast aluminum here that's pulverized.
Just dust.
How is that possible for a grass fire that did not come from this direction? Because you can see there's nothing that's been burned over here. What could cause that type of destruction when you have a grass fire on this side that obviously didn't connect? But even if it was a grass fire,
and it's still only half burned. I mean,
yeah, you can see there's even some grass over here that's still standing. It's not even been burned. So even down below, directly below this, you can see some wood fence posts that were burned, but you can see all that grass is still good. So how do you get this car this hot?
Everything was burned beyond recognition except any object that was the color blue.
Operation Blue Roof and the FEMA Self-Help Program, while similar, use two different materials, provide temporary protection for the roofs of residential structures damaged during severe weather. The sheeting for Operation Blue Roof are installed by a contractor, overseen by the Corps of Engineers according to certain specifications. To sign up for the program, you can call 888-ROOF-BLUE you can go to blueroof.us.
Children were left at home all alone without their parents. The Maui police chief, while he was brought over from Las Vegas, FEMA denied survivors of basic necessities like food and water, while their officials are staying in $1,300 a night luxury rooms at 5-star resorts like the Four Seasons. The fire also just went around all of the millionaires' homes and spared the mansions, but burned everything else to ashes. Just a month before the Maui fire, Hawaii Governor Josh Green, he was a keynote speaker at the United Nations and headed up a panel focusing on sustainable development. He also implemented that emergency order that suspended local zoning, environmental review, and more, and set up a special working group to give expedited rapid approval to individual housing projects. The victims of the Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii fires, they're speaking out, and they're calling out this massive land grab.
I am a teacher, a third-grade teacher from the burned-down King Kamehameha III Elementary in Lahaina. I am testifying on my concerns of the governor's emergency proclamation that happened 3 weeks prior to the fire, and how it suspended 7 state statutes, of which exonerated everything that you guys are in charge of. Covers county organization administration. Chapter 46, collective bargaining was rescinded. School impact fees, collective bargaining was rescinded. And to my knowledge, this was the first emergency proclamation in the country that didn't have a preceding incident. Normally it's like a hurricane, boom, we got an emergency proclamation. But this was just, from my knowledge, was just to streamline development on Maui, and it is allocated all decision-making power to one person, the housing officer of the governor, Nani Medeiros, who's unelected, who can trump every single thing that you do and everything that you say and every item that we cover, without any input from the community, without any public discourse, without sunshine law.
Oh, and Josh Green was also instructing, hey, everyone stop using social media immediately so that we're all left in the dark while he moves forward with his master plot and plan. There's also the tall fences and the black rollout tarps hiding everything from the media and the public. More than half a month has gone by, and all of the children, all of them, they're still missing with no answers or explanations. No identified minors out of 1,054 people still missing. I'm sure I missed something, certainly, but you tell me, does that all seem like just a coincidence and a conspiracy? All right, here's where it gets frustrating.
Your emergency management, why are we managing the emergency? Isn't that what you guys are getting paid for? When that's your job. I see you up there nodding off up there. You're falling asleep on the job and you have abandoned us in this community. We're a part of Maui. No, I'm not done talking yet. That you abandoned this community. Don't worry, we're covered. We have plenty of water and food right now because our community stepped up. But you failed us and we won't forget that.